Hello again from Dubai. Mm. Anyway, so we've talked about a lot of stuff in this unit so far. Now I kind of want to talk to you about where we are currently with TV and some of the things that revolve around that. So once again, I do want you to take notes on this stuff. You are going to need it for the test. However, I may go a little quicker than I do in class. I don't have anybody to look out at to make sure you're caught up on notes, but you can't stop me, rewind me, fast forward me, do as you please. So, anywho, let's talk about TV and where we are currently. Share my screen here, and boom, we're in. So, first thing I want to talk to you about today is the V chip. Now, the V chip is a device that was installed into analog TV sets for the most part, but it can be digital as well. And what is the V chip? That's a parental censorship device. And so, if parents want to, make sure their children are not watching objectionable material, violent material, things of that nature, they could install a V chip into their TV. And the V chip works based on that rating that you sometimes see in the upper left hand corner of your TV at the start of a TV show. It gives a general rating. Like I think, screw that up, hit the wrong one. Done. So it has general ratings like TVY, 14. So what are some? E is another one. And then below the general rating in that box, they tend to tell you what and why, what the show might have, like language or violence. And there are a couple others that we won't delve into now. But anyway, so the V chip was made for this purpose, for parental censorship. And like I said, it's based on the upper left-hand corner rating that you see at the beginning. Now, I know what you might be saying. Shouldn't the FCC be censoring the material on TV? Isn't it their job to watch over content on TV? And the answer to that is yes, it still is their job to not only do the coverage and the unfair ads, but also watch over the content of TV like they do for radio too. However, some parents have wanted more censorship than what is generally available out there. So that's why the V chip was invented, for those parents that want a little more than the FCC has to offer. I should point out to you, though, that in internet-based TV, these apps that we use nowadays, these internet-based versions of TV that the FCC does not regulate because it's not over the airwaves, it's via the internet, that there are a lot more options for censorship. And those options are generally done through the specific app that you're using to stream on your TV, on your MyPad, wherever it may be. So the V chip is a little dated at this point, since most of us are watching internet-based TV and those individual apps have censorship of their own. So from the V chip, let's move on. Now, I've talked about this with you before, but I just want to reiterate because I think it's important. So there are several different types of TV. There are public TV stations. These are TV stations like the one station that usually gives out weather. These are stations that usually serve a very local community. For instance, like I'd heard in one of our classes that Bird Island used to have one of these, or still does. These are the stations that show like school board meetings, sports, maybe student-made projects, whatever it may be. Public stations, their job is to be educational and to appeal to a very local and public group of people. It's a public service is what it is. Then you have network stations. Network stations are all the stations that you could get for free without having cable, just with having an antenna. So essentially, we're talking about NBC, ABC, Fox, WB, UPN. What am I missing? A couple others. Anyway, network stations get their money in the revenue based on ads, which we've talked about in this class. And network stations are supposed to appeal to everybody. Their goal is to have shows that will kind of reflect all of their population, whether they're young or whether they're old, whether they have a variety of interests. And so a lot of times they base that on what time the shows are on. So network TVs appeal, network TV stations appeal to everyone. Cable television shows, cable TV stations are stations that target a specific interest. They narrow in on a specific interest like sports or home improvement or nature or we used to play music videos or something to that effect. So they appeal to individual sets, much like the magazine does versus the newspaper. And we've talked a little bit about that. Now, what we have, a new type of station that we have are streaming stations, or it was often called TV on demand when it first started. It's so popular now that, geez, tornado warnings in Dubai. It's so popular now that it's really loud. So popular now that we don't really call it TV on demand, but you got to understand what streaming service has done for TV. When I was young, I feel like a lot of this unit is when I was a kid, but when I was younger, if there's a TV show on and you got home 15, 20 minutes late, or you had to run to the restroom and took too long, whatever, you missed that show. That show was never coming back. This idea of you can watch a show whenever you want, whether it's brand new, whether it's old, whether you want to watch the first 4 episodes, then drop off for a month and then come back, like that is a completely new concept, which is why I think spoilers have become such a thing in this day and age where anyone can watch it at any time. Because as early as not that long ago as the 90s, if anybody that was watching it watched it then and there, there was a good chance if you missed the show, you would never ever see the show again. So this idea of streaming or TV on demand, getting TV whenever and wherever you want it, for crying out loud, is a pretty radical concept in TV. So appreciate it, if you will. So different types of TV shows, or sorry, not shows, different types of TV in general. So I do want to talk a little bit now about how we got to where we are, this split that we've hit. So the analog TV are the old TVs. And remember, the analog TV is the type of TV that gets its signal from rabbit ears, from an antenna. And the picture is all mixed up into millions of little pieces. It goes into the antenna and then ultimately gets put back together inside the TV in something we call the TV tube. Well, that was a viable option for TV for quite some time. However, in the latter 2000s, we started needing that airspace, those airwaves, for something else, something that was getting very popular and also needed those same airwaves. What were those things? Cell phones. And getting towards 2008, specifically smartphones, which took up a lot of airspace. And I know it's weird to think about invisible things taking up space, but the airwaves did need to be opened up drastically. And so there was an argument that we needed to change away from analog TVs to digital TVs. Digital TVs get their pictures already put together, their picture's already full, and it comes into the TV with the picture already put together. So notice it comes in via a wire. A lot of this digital TV nowadays, and even in 2008, was done via the internet. So uh, once the conversion was made to from analog to digital, that cleared up a lot of space for cell phones. They tried doing it in 2007, and we just didn't have enough digital TVs in America, I being one of them. And you can still have an analog TV and get digital signals. You just have to get a little converter box that might be on top of your TV, but it still has the antenna. I tried doing the digital conversion in 2008, and I got like three stations. One of them was a Canadian cartoon station, and that's when I quit TV altogether. Not that I don't watch TV, but that's when I started doing all of the streaming and cutting the cord. So, um, like I said, you might be able to find an analog TV sitting around in an attic somewhere or something like that. Uh, but for the most part, we've converted completely over to digital TVs strictly for the purpose of opening up the airwaves for cell phones. So, one interesting thing that I've found about TV is this idea that we can watch history unfold before our eyes. Think about how long things took to be revealed back in the day. One of the things that I brought up earlier on in this unit is think about how long it took for King George to find out that he had lost America in the Revolutionary War. Months. It was a long ship ride back. Also, I heard this at one point that some people in America, it took them 4 months to find out that Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated. And it wasn't that news didn't get around. It's just that we were so sparse and spread out at that point in this country that it took 4 months for them to find that out. But think about all the things that have unfolded on TV, and people have got to pretty much watch them in real time. For instance, I'm thinking back like the moon landing. How amazing would that have been to see for the first time? And don't say it was fake. I had somebody said that once to Buzz Aldrin, and he ended up punching him out. So, or like growing up for me, watching the LA riots on TV in 1992. Yep, 92. Or I guess the big thing in my life, one of the things that I watched on TV, something that will stick with me forever, is of course 9/11. I think I watched 25 hours of news that day, back to back to back. It was such an impact, and I knew that the world was changing in a lot of ways, and it has. So I guess I'm curious, and maybe I'll ask when I get back, but I'm curious what events have happened in your life that will stick with you forever. What events have you watched unfold? Big events on TV that have stuck with you, and uh, consider how lucky we are to be able to see these things right as they happen. We are in a vastly different world than they were during Abraham Lincoln, than they were during the Revolution. Uh, we get to watch it all go down right now. And speaking of watching it all go down right now, this is where I'm going to end. I have Dubai to get to, so let it be known. Hey, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week whenever Dubai lets me go. But have a good one. And scene.